Alright, instructions on assembling the base of your robot. You need some parts to put the base together. You'll need 2 gear motors, 2 wheels, your ESP8266 microcontroller, a sensor mounter that holds the distance sensor, an Easter egg, 2 small screws, they can be silver or black, the front plate for picking up magnetic things with your robot, the battery pack, and of course the base. You need a hot glue gun and a screwdriver to do this job. Either side of the base can be the bottom. We're going to start on the bottom of the robot assembling it. Most of this goes together with hot glue. This is the plate that picks up magnetic parts of the field. We're going to glue that to the front and apply glue to the front of the robot. The more square part is the front of the robot. And just put that into place. Now it's important that you leave this little hole that's towards the front of the robot exposed, because that's where your sensor for following lines mounts. So leave that hole exposed and hold your plate into place until the glue is dry. So that's into place. On the back of the robot goes the Easter egg. The Easter egg acts as a skid plate on the robot, and a little glue on either side of the smaller side of the Easter egg. If the Easter eggs aren't in 2 parts, make sure you take it apart, but a little glue on both sides of the smaller half of the Easter egg, and then just put the 2 together like that. That gives it the correct height for a skid plate. So now the 2 are glued together. Then we're going to mount the skid plate on the back of the robot with just a bead of hot glue. This hot glue gun does not hold a lot of glue. Actually, the larger hot glue gun works a little better on this project. So hopefully you have one of those larger ones. But just a little bead of hot glue on the bottom of the skid plate. Next comes your gear motors and your wheels. You can see on the gear motors there is flatted shafts, and there is a hole to accept the shafts on the wheel, and you just put the 2 together like that. So we'll do both of these wheels. Get them both ready. Now the wheels, it's real important that you get the wheels on parallel to the robot. You don't want the wheel going at a direction like that or an angle like that. You want it perfectly parallel with the robot, so the robot goes straight when it's together. So you want to get the feel for where that goes, and centered between the 2 parts of the base there. So you want to center the wheel and get it parallel. Get the feel for that before you actually put it on. And when you got a feel for where it goes, then apply plenty of hot glue to hold that motor into place where it goes. And put the motor into place, and you can move it around a little bit, and once you get it into the right spot, hold it into place until the hot glue cools. Alright, same with the other side. Plenty of hot glue to hold the motor into place. And again, you can move it around a little bit while the glue is still hot. Be careful, of course, don't get any hot glue onto your fingers, and make sure everything's parallel and into place properly. So that's what the bottom of your robot should look like when it is complete, to this stage anyway. Now let's turn it over and go up top. On the top we mount the ESP8266 microcontroller. You've got this row of terminals. That goes towards the back of the robot. The back of the robot is this round part. That goes towards the back of the robot. This is your battery pack that goes towards the front of the robot. And let's just lay out everything where it goes. Again, we need to leave this hole open. This hole is for your line sensor, so we need to leave that open. So your battery pack is going to go a little bit that way of that hole. So there's plenty of room there yet. And the ESP8266 then goes somewhere between the back of the robot and the battery pack. Let's get the ESP8266 mounted. The easiest way to do this is put a screw into this corner before you try mounting it. So put that into place. The other screw, if you have a magnetic screwdriver, this works the best. The other screw goes in this location on that side of the robot. Let's tighten this one first. Goes onto the robot, and your screwdriver needs to go through a hole on the ESP8266. Now you don't want to over tighten these or you might wind up cracking your ESP8266 baseboard. So just tighten them down until they are snug. Now this is real soft plastic. You might have to push a little bit to get those screws started, but once they're started, they'll go right in nice and easily. Now we've got our battery pack. Again, with the hot glue, plenty of hot glue on the battery pack to keep it into place. And again, you want to mount it so your sensor hole is still showing. Try to get it on there nice and parallel with everything so it looks good. Alright, now all those top pieces are in place. Let's go ahead and mount our sensor block as well. Now you can see on the sensor block there's a side that has a little more space on it than on the other side. The side with a little more space is the bottom. So that's going to mount right here in the front of the robot. So just a little hot glue on the bottom of the sensor plate. That's the side with a little bit more on it. And this will be centered on the very front of the robot. And you can tell if you're in the center by looking at that hole for the sensor on the top. So you want to put that in just about the center. It doesn't have to be exact, but somewhere in the neighborhood of the middle of the robot. Alright, so we've got all those parts into place. Now we've got all these long wires hanging around, the long battery wire. The best way I've found to deal with the long battery wire is to feed that through the round holes here. So down in through the round holes, turn your robot over, and in through the other round hole. And that takes up some of the slack in that long wire. Now, it's real important that we get these two wires into the right place. If we look at the front of the ESP8266 and these terminals, we can see down on this end, one of the terminals says V in, the other says GND ground. The black wire goes into GND ground. So you need your screwdriver to do this, and you'll put the black wire in and tighten it down onto the black wire so the black wire stays. Now if it comes out like that, that means you didn't get it in the hole properly. It's tough for me to do this because I can't really see it, but that one will go in there. Alright, so I've got the two wires hooked up. You want to be able to tug on those wires a little bit. If they pull out, that means that they're not in there properly. We've also got the motor wires, and those will also feed through the round holes. Don't put them in the square holes. The square holes are to hold your cell phone holder, which we'll mount later in a later video. But your motor wires will feed up through the round holes on either side of the robot, out through the front, so we can hook those up to the ESP8266. And the same way as hooking up the red and black battery wires, we're going to put the motor wires into the B-, B+, and with these, it's not real important which way you do it. What is important is that you're going to do some testing a little later to make sure your motors are turning the right way. When you tell your robot to go forward, if it's going backwards or turning in a circle, that means you've got these two wires reversed, and you'll have to just reverse them. But these mount in the same way as the battery wires. And once those are in place, we will add a little jumper wire between the V in and this MOT terminal. We'll do that in the classroom. We'll add that later. But after that, your base is ready to go, and once we get everything wired up and a little programming done, you should have a moving, working robot.